No Harm Done, a Halloween Tale by Lucy Miller Murray. Once upon a time, but the time was now, there was a very big and sweet black dog named Claire. And a little tough gray cat called Oscar. Despite the difference in their size, Oscar the cat was in charge and always had the last word. He made the decisions on where to go, what games to play, and when to curl up with his bigger sister. Claire obediently agreed to all of Oscar's suggestions. So it was that on one cold October Halloween, Oscar suggested that they go trick-or-treating to their neighbors, the mean Mr. and Mrs. Smith. What is trick-or-treating? Asked Claire.
It's when you visit your neighbors dressed up as someone else, perform a trick, and receive a treat.
A treat? Claire asked, licking her tongue. From the mean Mr. and Mrs. Smith?
Yes, Claire, your favorite thing, a treat.
Knowing that Claire could not resist. Oscar himself did not care for treats, but oh, how he loved tricks. A treat, I understand, said Claire, but what would be our trick to get that treat?
That's easy,
answered Oscar.
We'll go as Mom and Dad and play their instruments. You'll play the cello, and I'll play the violin. I know Mom and Dad are going to a party this evening, so we can steal out while they're away as long as we're back before 9.
How do you know they're going to a party? Asked Claire.
I saw the invitation on Mom's desk,
answered Oscar. The human parents of Oscar and Claire were a couple who loved their life as musicians. Mom played the cello and Dad the violin. When they played, both Oscar and Claire would sit beneath their feet and listen with delight. Claire loved the deep sound of the cello, while Oscar liked the showy violin. Okay, said Claire, I'll play the cello, but how can I disguise myself as Mom, and how can you look like Dad?
Simple, said Oscar. After Mom and Dad leave, we go into Mom's closet, get her red scarf and tie it around your head. I'll sneak into Dad's closet and grab a tie, the one with the musical notes on it. I will look into the mirror and tie it as I've seen him do.
You're a clever fellow, Oscar, said Claire, but how do we get into their closets?
No problem, said Oscar. Just follow me.
Shortly before 6, as his parents closed the door to their house, Oscar trotted off to their bedroom, and with a snap of his paws, opened their closets, where he often hid when he wished to be alone. Claire followed. From Dad's closet, he drew forth the tie with the musical notes And from Mom's closet, he pulled the pretty red scarf and tied it over Claire's furry head.
You look beautiful, like our beautiful mom, Oscar said, and maybe even a little like Little Red Riding Hood.
Thank you, Oscar, said Claire, as she watched him don Dad's favorite tie. And you look like our handsome Dad, and a little like the big bad wolf.
Thanks, Claire, purred Oscar. We're really quite a pair.
And now, asked Claire, what about the music?
Follow me, said Oscar
As he headed toward the practice room where Mom and Dad kept their cherished instruments.
Lie down, Claire, ordered Oscar, while I tie the cello to your back.
Okay, said Claire, but make sure the case is tightly closed because I know Mom would not want anything to happen to her precious cello.
Right, mewed Oscar. God forbid.
What about the violin, asked Claire. How do we carry that?
No problem, said Oscar,
As he slung the case on his back and headed towards the door.
and don't worry, I'll protect Dad's precious violin.
Now, asked Claire, how in the world do we get to the Smiths?
No problem, said Oscar. Follow me.
Okay, said Claire. I'm sure you know the way. Oscar indeed knew the way, at least in the dusk, through the narrow paths that surrounded their parents' house in the woods. With little difficulty, he found the way to the Smiths in less than an hour. It was dark by the time they arrived, but the dim light that shone above the Smiths' door made it possible to find their house. On the door hung a sign that read, "No Halloweeners." Does that mean us? Asked Claire.
Not really, said Oscar. We're special.
As you say, Oscar, Claire replied. With this, Oscar scratched on the door and Claire gave a friendly whoop. An angry Mr. Smith with a pitchfork on his shoulder opened the door and was about to shout, "No Halloweeners!" But when he saw Claire and Oscar, he uttered instead a surprise. "What is this I see before me?"
We're Oscar and Claire, your neighbors through the woods, and we have come to play for you.
"Play what?" asked the sullen Mrs. Smith, who also appeared at the door.
The violin and cello,
Purred Oscar in his most appealing manner. "I'll believe it when I hear it," snarled Mr. Smith as he opened the door.
Okay, said Oscar. Have a seat.
With faces smirking in disbelief, Mr. and Mrs. Smith sat on their couch while Oscar uncased their instruments. Claire plucked a string on the cello, and Oscar the same on the violin. was silence for a moment before Mrs. Smith clapped her hands. Mr. Smith soon followed suit. Oscar and Claire finally raised their eyes from their instruments and stood to bow. Mr. Smith pulled 2 green pieces of paper from his pocket and placed one in each instrument case.
What is this? Oscar asked.
In appreciation for your playing, Mr. Smith answered, in a voice quite different from the one he had used at the door. I'll give them more, Mrs. Smith said with tears in her eyes. I will never forget this. And Mr. Smith, please put your pitchfork away. Use it only in the hayfield. Very well, said Mr. Smith. The world now seems too good for weapons.
Thank you, said Oscar. But now we must be off, since we need to be home before 9.
Goodbye then, dear friends, said Mrs. Smith, and we hope that you'll return soon. Thank you, said Claire, with a nod of her furry head and her face that seemed to bear a smile. Oscar and Claire packed up their instruments and departed into the night. Now the path home was not so clear in the dark woods, and Oscar lost his way many times. It was well past 9 when they finally arrived at their door, only to find it lit with black cars, flashing red lights. Policemen stood speaking with Mom and Dad. All voices stopped as Oscar and Claire came into view bearing the treasured instruments. Oscar and Claire, wherever have you been? Shouted Mom. And what are you doing with our instruments? Claire uttered an apologetic snuffle and snuggled against Dad's leg.
Oscar rubbed against Mom's ankles and begged to be picked up.
Mom gave in and brought him against her heart. Dad opened the instrument cases and after careful examination breathed a sigh of relief. No harm done! Of course, I can't explain the money in the case, he added. The policemen smiled, turned off their flashing lights, and quickly drove off. Indeed, no harm done, Oscar purred as Claire whooped and nodded her furry head. Let's go play, said Mom. Yes, let's play, said Dad. Let's curl up, said Claire and Oscar.
Yes, said Oscar. Let's curl up and listen.